I'm Clemmer, coming to you from Kitchener, Ontario. For those of you who don't know where the center of the universe is, or at least the center of my universe, it's about 60 miles west of Toronto. And we're happy to have you join us. We have registrations from around the world, a couple of hundred sites that have registered to join us here this afternoon. So let's jump right in, and we're going to basically be doing an overview or a quick review of some of the issues that lead to a moose mess. We're going to then as well talk about a bit of the background on how I wrote Moose on the Table, which is my 6th book, and some of the thinking behind it, a bit of an overview of it, and then move on to what are some of the key lessons, key issues, key themes that all of this work is trying to pull together around this theme of breaking through the bull. How can we get through the bull that pervades so many of our organizations, where we're not really having perhaps true conversations, we're not having some of those difficult, courageous conversations, and all of those get compounded into problems with putting up barriers for true high-performance organizations and high-performance cultures. So we'll try to look at how we can solve all of that in the next hour. Obviously, we won't be solving it, but we'll be trying to see what we can do to perhaps point to some things that you might find useful in breaking through your own bull, in your own team, your own organization. So let's take a look, first of all, at what is it that are some of the key things contributing to a moose mess. And we see moose tracks all over the place here in this this little drawing. This actually is taken from, all of the sketches today are taken from the Moose on the Table book. And I guess there's a number of things, and it can get pretty complex on how all of this comes together. But I would say, first of all, that what we have in many organizations is this failure to communicate. You can even see that, we can see that as a little bit like cool hand moose here. We have a failure to communicate. Communication is one of those themes that at the Clemmer Group we constantly hear as a problem, an issue, something that needs to be addressed. And it's pretty complicated. It can cover a lot of territory. What we're primarily focusing on here is how communication contributes to not getting at real issues. That's one of the key themes of a lot of this work. And how we can sometimes think we're communicating, especially in today's day and age, by using a lot of electronic tools that really are great information tools. They're great IT tools. They're really not very good communication tools. And I guess that's what I see most frequently coming out now is the problem with the email beast, as we've come to call it, where people confuse informing with communication. Often in my workshops, I'll ask people, how many here feel that they need more communication, better communication around their organization? And of course, pretty well all the hands go up. Then I ask, well, how many people would like more email? Almost no hands go up. And so what happens, though, in many organizations, manager hears maybe through a survey or some way, they say, we need more communication. What do? CC more people on email, send out more emails. So there's this tremendous confusion between information and communication. We're going to break down communication as we go along here in a number of different elements. And certainly one of the next elements is the issue of, well, we often use terms like walk the talk, lead by example. We all know that we need behavior that's consistent with what it is that we're saying. And yet, we all know and experience as well lots of inconsistencies in our teams and our organizations. But sometimes it's a little harder to look in the mirror and maybe admit to some of those inconsistencies in either our own behavior or within the team perhaps that we're leading. So here we see a chart, a continuum. I think of it as the lip service leadership continuum. When you hear people say, well, we need to change the way we do things around here. We need to change the culture. We need to be more service-oriented, or we need to get more teamwork, or we need more innovation, or quality needs to improve. So there's a number of goals that organizations have and changes that they're trying to bring into the organization. And many of the people leading those changes, many of the managers, are basically saying, well, I'm committed. I really want to make this happen. And yet, when you start looking at some of the behavior, it's really at the very minimal end of the spectrum, way off to the right side of the continuum here, where it's really perhaps no more than permission that they're giving to HR departments, to training departments, to bring in maybe some new technologies, to do a structural change, whatever it may be, but saying, yeah, we should do that. Go ahead. Here's some money, here's some budget, let's go make that happen. And then if you go back and say, well, are you committed to this change? They're going to say, well, of course I am. Look at what I've allowed to happen here. I've delegated it away. Well, yes, that's commitment. Certainly better than resistance, I guess, or not allowing this to happen. But it's really a very minimal level of commitment. And as this graph tries to show, the degree of change is going to be pretty small as well. So we move a little further along the graph, and we see a little more degree of change, where maybe now we see a switching from a passive level of commitment to maybe a more assertive level of commitment, where I might be at least saying some of the right words. We need to be more, again, service-oriented, more teamwork. We need more of these sorts of things happening. And I'm promoting the idea, and I'm talking it up, and maybe getting out and trying to be a little more visible with it. But again, my own behaviors perhaps haven't changed all that much. So we move up the continuum a little bit further. We get to the level of passionate lip service. Now I've really cranked up the rhetoric, and I really am seeing the need for how you need to be more customer service oriented. You need to behave more as a team. You need to improve our adaptability to change and our flexibility. You need to, and of course, what's wrong with this picture is it's all about me trying to change you. One of our more popular workshops is called Leading at the Speed of Change, and it has a lot to do with, I think a lot of participants are actually there to figure out how to change everybody else. But it's a whole lot more difficult, and again it takes more looking into that mirror to say, well, what do I need to change about me? There's that old Einstein quote that we can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. Well, I would also paraphrase that to say we can't change behavior in others with the same behavior that got us here. So if we're truly going to change them, then we need to take this much bigger leap towards involved leadership. And we need to change me. And that's tough, because it's so much easier to want to change everybody else. As a parent, I'm reminded of the old adage when our kids were younger. They're all adults now, but the old adage that children act like their parents despite all attempts to teach them good manners. You see them doing something, you think, where'd you learn that? And if you're really honest and you really look deep in that mirror and you think about walk the talk and lead by example, you can say, well, I can clearly see that you learned that from your mother. Clearly. Because it's tough to really recognize our own behavior being reflected back to us and be a truly involved leader. And so then lastly, we get to the level of integration, where what we're trying to do to them, what we're trying to change in the organization, is consistent with who I am. So now I've really evolved beyond just looking for better ways of doing things. I've really evolved into a different way of being. And that's a different level of transformation.